Hello, I'm Tim Burfitt from Twocanoes Software, and I want to tell you a little bit about MDS. A new application allows you to set up Macs, the modern Macs, very, very quickly. So let me tell you about what the problem is. So I have here a 2018 Mac Mini, and this has the new T2 coprocessor in it, which means that it does secure boot. It also it no longer supports net booting. So all the folks that are used to setting up their Macs either through target disk mode or through something like Deploy Studio using NetBoot won't work on this machine. And in fact, anything that any modern Mac and recent Macs will have the T2 coprocessor, and they'll hit this same issue. Also, Apple has changed the way that firmware updates are installed. They're installed now bundled with the macOS installer, and so pretty much block-based imaging or any kind of imaging is dead because in order to get those firmware updates, you need to use the macOS installer. So the question is, how do you deploy a whole bunch of these Macs? And so that's the way that that we came up with is an application, a Mac application called MDS. What MDS does, it allows you to create a external drive or a disk image and put resources either on a web server or on that external volume, and then boot from the recovery partition and very quickly automate and install the macOS and any packages that you have. So let me show you how it works. I'll go ahead and launch MDS. And you'll see here that MDS allows you, there's two major functions of this. One is that it allows you to create what's called an automaton, which will help automate through keyboard commands, which we'll get to that in a bit. But the main way is that you'll be configuring with MDS is through workflows. So let me create a workflow. So this first workflow, I'm going to be installing Mojave and some packages and some scripts. So I'll say Mojave plus packages plus scripts, and I'll just say standard setup for staff. So this is just standard setup. We want to re-image or re-set up Macs. So then we have four options we have to select here. The first one is the macOS installer disk image. So this is a disk image that just contains the macOS installer. The macOS installer is something you download from Apple through the App Store, and then we create a disk image of it. In order to create a disk image of it, you just run this command. So you click on this question mark and copy this command and run it, and it'll create a disk image of it, which you can then select in this step. So for our purposes, I have two different disk images. I can choose either Mojave 10.14.3 or High Sierra. So I'll click High Sierra, I'll click Mojave 10.14.3. And so then that means that when this target Mac that we're setting up will now have Mojave put on it. Now we want to be able to install some packages and some applications. So in this MDS resources that I put together just by creating a folder and dropping some stuff in it, I have some applications. Boot Runner is one of our applications that we like to get installed for our staff. And then some configuration packages that were created with another project called AutoPKG that allows you to do some configuration. So we have those packages. And then I have Firefox, and I just drag the application in here. MDS will recognize it as an application, automatically package it up, and install it with the macOS installer. They actually have an application from ours, Microsoft Office. We have an antivirus package, which is a MPKG, which is a different style of package. One of the ideas behind MDS is that you can just throw any kind of package in here, and it'll transform it into the correct format to be able to use the macOS installer to install it. And here's a really interesting one where we also sell a product called WinClone. And WinClone allows you to create or to image and deploy bootcamp partitions. So I have a package here that will create a bootcamp partition and install Windows 10 to it. So at the end of this whole process, not only will we have a fully featured Mojave system with all this software on it, we will also have Windows 10 on it with our Boot Runner application that allows you to select between the two. So that is the packages. So I'll select that folder, packages and apps. And the next one is scripts. So that's a new feature in the latest version of MDS 1.1 is it allows you to drop in scripts along with resources and have those resources or have those scripts run. And so the way it works is MDS will create a package with all of these scripts and then it'll install that package last. So any software that you install will be installed first and then along with the macOS, and then these scripts will be run. There's also resources folders, which the scripts can reference. So I'll give you an example of that. The set default doc. So if I look at that, all it does is copies the com.apple.doc.plist, which is a sample plist that has all the configuration of the doc from the resources folder, which gets passed in as $1 to the user template folder. So a very simple script. We provide these scripts as kind of an idea of things you can do. You can also install configuration profiles. So inside resources, I put a TCU background JPEG, right? They'll want that to be the desktop pattern. So I create a script which is set desktop background. And this script is very simple. It just copies, again, the information from the resources folder into the desktop pictures folder, which is in our user shared folder, and then installs a profile to use that configuration profile. And you can see that profile is inside of resources. So here's the desktop configuration profile. So again, all these scripts are made available to you, and you can add all the ones in that you want to. So let me go ahead and select that script folder that I created. Here we go, scripts. And then finally, we have this last checkbox, which means, do we want to erase and install the OS and have a fresh copy, or do we want to take the OS that's on there and just upgrade it to whatever version that you specified in the macOS installer disk image? So for this example, I will erase and install it. So the drive will be completely erased first, or the Mac OS volume will be completely erased, and then Mojave be installed and all the packages and scripts run on it. So that workflow is completed. Another option is the ability to automatically run a workflow. So the idea is once we boot it up from the recovery partition, we have this workflow will automatically run. If we don't select this, we'll have to manually select it, but this is a great way to automatically run the workflow. So we'll leave that selected. And then I'll select Save to Volume. And I have, I have a external volume here. I have a SanDisk SSD, but a thumb drive works just as well. In fact, the difference between this SSD and just a kind of a cheap thumb drive is pretty minimal because the resources are all copied to the SSD or the internal volume and installed from there. So it usually takes a while to set it up if it's a slower drive, but if it's just a one-time thing when you restore it, the read time is usually very fast. So let me go ahead and plug this in, and once I plug it in, it should show up on to allow me to select it. And I've already formatted it as HFS Plus, called it Mac Deploy Stick, and then I'll just click on Open, and it'll go through and all the packages. It will discover ones that are already there. If they're not there, it'll package them up and put them on that external drive. So let's go ahead and open up the Mac Deploy Stick, and we can see that in there we have a run, which is what actually launches this workflow. And then in there we have the applications, which Imager is the applications that manages the workflow, and we'll see that in a minute. And then we have a configuration, the Mojave disk image, and then all of the packages, including our scripts and all the other stuff that's been repackaged so it's installed correctly. So now what we're going to do next is I'll take the 2018 Mac Mini and I'll plug it in, and we'll boot it up and run that workflow on it to completely reset this machine and make it into a dual boot. So let me go ahead and get that started up. So what I'll do is I'll unplug, I'll eject the Mac Deploy Stick from here, and then I will plug it into, there we go. I'll plug it into the back of the Mac Mini. It's nice, the new Mac Minis have both USB-C-A and USB-C-C, so we got them all back there. So I'll plug it in. There we go. It's starting up. So I'll hold the Option key down on the keyboard, and hopefully it'll bring up the boot selector. There it goes. And so instead of selecting any of these volumes, I will go ahead and actually select, I'll boot to the recovery. So I'll press Command-R. and it'll boot up into the recovery partition. All right, now I'm on the recovery partition. I'll launch my workflow, and this can be completely automated as well, but I'll show you how to do it manually first. So I go up to Utilities and open up the terminal. I'll make this a little bit bigger so we can see it. And then we just run that script that was copied to onto that external volume, and that's under /volumes/ Mac deploy stick run. The script is continuing. It's launching the workflow selector. And then I should see that I have my workflow, and it's automatically going to run after 30 seconds. So you can see at this point, I don't have to do anything else. This Mac Mini is going to be completely re-imaged or erased and reinstalled. So I'll let that start to get going, and when it's completed, I'll come back and talk a little bit more about it. All right, it's now completed. It's not at the setup assistant, so I know that the packages that created the user as well as skip the setup assistant worked. So let me just sign in here and see if the configuration all happened. So what I'm looking for is to see if the desktop pattern changed and if the dock is on the left side, and also if the application's installed. So there we go. We have my custom background installed. The antivirus installed, so I'm getting this security preference warning, so I know that installed correctly. And the dock's on the left side, so that package was installed correctly. Now if I look in the applications, I should see that I have the, what did I install? Mac deploy stick. Let me see. There it goes, and then I see that the full Office suite was installed. So it looks like all my packages were installed correctly. Let's see if I had a Wi-Fi profile as well as the best desktop pattern. So we look in here, or the desktop background. There was the two profiles got installed. So that all worked perfectly. Final thing to check is if I log out, I want to see if Boot Runner installed, so I can select Windows. So I'll just do log out. And at this point, we should see Boot Runner, which we do. I still have the external drive plugged in, so if I were to unplug this, that one, the volume hit itself anyway. So now I can select between the two and select Windows if I want to. So that worked great. So let me show you a little bit of how to automate this, because I had to type in some commands and I want to be able to make things a little bit more automated. So let me actually shut this down. Okay, it's shut down. And I'll quit this. And I'll go back into Mac deploy stick, or MDS. And now we're going to look at the create automaton and configure automaton. So I have, what we have is what we call the MDS automaton. And what this does is all those keyboard strokes, the Command R, the typing of the terminal command, as well as opening up the terminal, will be performed by this automaton. This doesn't have any data on it. All it does is act like a keyboard. So that means I can, once I go to the options screen, I can plug this in, I can just walk away, and everything else will be automated. So let me show you the process for that. So in order to create this, if you buy this directly from us, we sell these at our website. If you go to store.twocanoes.com, you can buy one of these. It comes with this as well as the software. Or you can buy your own Arduino and flash it using the Create Automaton button. So we'll just focus on the Configure Automaton, assuming that this has already been set up. So if I let me plug this in. So I'll click on the Configure Automaton and I'll plug it in. So it goes into admin mode or configuration mode for the first 5 seconds. So when I plug it in, it'll detect it and show me what the command is. So you can see that what the automaton will do is it'll automatically run whatever command is labeled here. And this is the command that I typed. Remember when I typed /volume /Mac deploy stick /run. This is what the command is going to automatically run. It's going to wait between the command R and when it to run this command. So it'll open up terminal and run this command after 120 seconds. And this pre-command delay is the amount of time from when terminal opens to when it starts typing. One thing we added for new in 1.1 is the ability to type a firmware password. So if the Mac is protected by a firmware password, it will type that in first before doing the command R to run it. For this example, we'll leave that off, but we will have it automatically run this command. So I don't need to update because it's actually the settings exactly what we want. So let's just hit cancel. If I were to hit update, it would just put the new savings there. The new settings, save those new settings. And so now I have my automaton is all ready to go. And let me go back and actually reset that whole machine up again, but using the automaton without doing any keyboard strokes, except for the option key when I first started up. So let me open this up so you can see the screen. All right. So I will power on the Mac Mini, and I'm holding the option key down, so we'll get to see the boot selector screen. Okay, now I'm at the startup selector screen. You can see I have my volumes to start up. I'm not going to select any of those. What I want to do is hit Command R to go to the recovery partition, but I'm not even going to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in the automaton. It's automatically going to do the Command R, and then it's going to boot up and give the command automatically. So I'll plug this into the back of the Mac Mini. And then it'll go into the configuration mode for 5 seconds, which we won't be configuring it. So then it'll press Command R after that, and it'll starting up. So there it goes. It's starting up using the Command R. Takes about 120 seconds before it runs the terminal command or opens the terminal, and then waits an additional 6 seconds, and then it will open up or will run the command to start the workflow, and then the workflow will automatically run. So at this point, I'm done, right? I can go off and start doing the next computer and be able to set that one up. Also, after the deployment sets up or the workflow runs for about 5 minutes, the Mac will reboot. And at that point, you no longer need the external drive or the automaton plugged in, so you can disconnect them and go to the next one and move along. And so that means you can set up a bunch of machines very quickly. And so the process again is you hold the option key down, the Mac starts up, you plug in the automaton, you plug in the external drive, and at this point you can then wait for it to reboot. And at the reboot, you unplug the external drive and the automaton and move on to the next machine. While this is waiting to go up, I'll tell you one other thing. You can actually have the resources from a web server as well. I'm going to make a separate video on how to do that, but you don't have to have the thumb drive or the external drive. It just makes it faster because it's SSD and it's local. But you can also get all the resources from a web server off a disk image, and that replaces the need for the external volume. You can either type the commands or use the automaton to do that for you off the web server. So those pieces are kind of independent of each other. You can either get the resources from a local drive or from a web server, and then the automaton, of course, can type the commands, or you can use your hands to type the commands, either one. So we're just waiting for this to automatically give the keyboard commands to open up the terminal and run the command. There it goes. It went up to the utilities menu. It's going to open up the terminal. And once the terminal is open, it'll wait 6 seconds, and then it'll run the command. And the first thing it does is it connects up to the Wi-Fi network. And then after that, it will verify the network connectivity. And then it will go and run the script automatically to start setting up the machine. All right, the imager is now opened up, or the workflow manager has now come up, and it will find the workflow and it'll automatically start running it after 30 seconds. So at this point, I haven't touched the keyboard. I just plugged in the automaton at the option startup, and it'll start imaging. And when it's done, it'll reboot, and I come back about 20 to 30 minutes later, the Mac will be set up. If I come back in about 5 minutes, I can unplug the external drive as well as the automaton and go on to the next one, or I just come back in 30 minutes and everything will be done. thanks very much for watching. I wanted to let you know that you can buy these automatons directly from us. So if you go either to Twocanoes.com and go to MDS, or just head over to store.twocanoes.com, I'll put links in the description below, that you can actually buy the automaton fully configured, set up, and we pretty much any place we sell it worldwide, so we can ship it out to you. So we have them in stock now. Please go ahead and order some. It does come with the software to do it, so it's a great kind of matchup to be able to do it. It includes the software as well as the USB cable and the Arduino compatible device inside the custom enclosure that was designed right here in Illinois. The other thing is, make sure that you subscribe by clicking on the subscribe button. Should be right around here, and you'll be notified of when more of these videos come out. So thank you for watching. Click subscribe and head over to store.twocanoes.com and grab one of these automatons with our MDS software and make your Mac setup fast.